Welcome to the stream, everyone. Hi.
Hello, how are you? How is everyone?
It's a
It's
brand
a
new day.
day.
It's a brand
It
new day,
is.
Sarah.
It is, and I'm glad of that.
If you've never seen Sarah and I before, we run a weekly, every Thursday horror story club where the two of us, who are writers, are engaging with this anthology, The Dark Descent, edited by David G. Hartwell, anthology of short stories. And what we're doing as writers is reading these stories every week, dissecting them, lifting up the hood, analyzing them in community with y'all. There's a Discord that goes along with this story club. And it's been a great time. So welcome. Welcome if you're here. There's also a sci-fi story club on Wednesday. So welcome.
There
Sarah,
is.
before we
Hello.
get started here, I did want to ask, how's the writing going?
Oh man. I'm always going to be completely honest when you ask me that. Today was a weird writing day. Just a weird feeling day. I'm healing from a medical procedure, and so I think that helps kind of like throw things off whack. But I did some of my handwriting this morning as I usually do, and I got really stuck on a very small like plot point that I had forgotten about and like kind of had an internal meltdown. And I was sort of like, I don't know where the light source is coming from in this scene. I'm going to have to rewrite the whole show. And like, I went and I like decompressed and I ate some Cheetos. And then I came back and I'm like, oh, I can literally just add this small detail. Like, my entire morning did not need to be derailed by this one minor detail. So it's interesting how uh our
Like when you
perspectives
say
of yeah.
detail, like a plot detail, or say more on that.
Yeah. So my character is so I've been working on season 2 of Girl in Space for like 10,000 years at this point. And this was back in episode 1 and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need this item later." And I was reading through episode 1 and I was like, "Oh my gosh, how can this character see in the dark?" And they're literally in a room full of like supplies, and it's not far-fetched that there would be at the very most like a lighter or and I my brain just like blew this out of proportion and I had to go and stress eat Cheetos. And
Hmm.
so it's one of those days. But I did come back and I just added in sort of out of spite. I was like, well, she finds not even a lighter, but one of those things used in chemistry class, a striker
Nice.
that doesn't need to have like propane or butane or whatever's in those. So, yep, that was my writing adventure this morning was falling into despair over something incredibly minute that was easily fixed when I came back in a better state of mind. How
Okay.
about you?
Yeah,
How's
well,
your writing?
I haven't written today. I've been like in a learning moment, in a learning mode. I started this horror workshop, the one that we were talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was kind of digging in, doing some reading. So it's been a rich input morning. Read some flash fiction, which as we continue to write more on flash fiction, that's another thing for those who are here for the first time on Fridays. We do live writing, Sarah and I. Anyway, I haven't read that much flash fiction, so kind of consuming some of that. That was like my writing diet, as it were, this morning.
Ooh.
Yeah,
And that's so important, that writing diet. It
I think
is.
so. I mean, it's kind of everything, right? In some ways, I think.
It kind of is. I always think of this as like you have a pool of resources up here. You have like a little curated museum up here, and you can walk through the exhibits, and that's what inspires you. And like that stuff's got to come from somewhere. So it comes from the diet of media that you're on. I love that. How do you feel reading flash fiction? Like, do you feel a little bit different reading that as your media diet than you do reading other things?
Definitely. I think it's its own thing. I think I don't like a lot of it, but I like some of it. It feels there's like a lot of like
Mm,
language performance. I mean, it hits this like there's like many beautiful sentences in
Yeah.
sense in ways that are beautifully, like distractingly beautiful, kind of
I can
experience,
totally see that.
you know?
Yeah.
But it's good. I mean, I'm definitely reading some flash fiction that I really like. It's just like as a kind of general milieu, and a lot of times I just I'm like, oh, okay. You wouldn't see this level of performative prose in
Mm.
this collection, for example, which brings us to everyone the task at hand. The task at hand. Young Goodman Brown. So, Young Goodman Brown by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Some of y'all might have read this in high school. This is a very iconic, sort of ghostish, gothish-ish kind of story about this guy who goes through the woods with a devil and has his faith tested, and ultimately proves that he does have faith, but the consequences of his devotion, as it were, are not exactly what you would expect. That is kind of the long and short of this story. Sarah,
It's really
what was your
good.
experience? What was your experience reading this?
My experience reading this was I went in completely cold. I did not read this in high school or anything else. I've never even read Nathaniel Hawthorne before. And so I went into this story completely cold. I didn't even know when it was written. Apparently, it was written in 1835. I had to look that up. But my experience reading this was it evoked a lot of imagery for me. And I watch a lot of horror movies and I read a lot of horror. And I hadn't realized that Young Goodman Brown was a story that I think inspired a lot of the stuff that I've seen and read. And so it was really interesting um, seeing sort of the source material for that. Um, I found myself while I was going through it. It takes place, I believe, it takes place in Salem, maybe around the time a generation before or after the Salem witch trials infamously happened in the late 1600s in Salem, Massachusetts. And it played with my expectations in a way I didn't think it would. We were talking yesterday about a science fiction story that very similarly set the tone for a lot of science fiction to come. And we were talking about how it was a little frustrating that it felt so tropey because maybe it had invented a lot of tropes, but we're used to them by now. This really played with my expectations, like reading this back to back with that story. So I was reading it. Goodman Brown starts off through the woods on a mysterious errand that he doesn't describe to us, the reader. And this man joins him, and immediately I'm like, oh, I bet that man's like the devil, and that's going to be the twist. And then like the next page, it's like, yep, nope, this man was the devil. And it just like comes out, and this happened a few times. This happened also with his wife's name is Faith, and I'm like, oh, I bet that's going to be a metaphor. And they're like, yeah, no, this is literally a metaphor. Like this is a metaphor. And the story is like, so like the story anticipated a lot of the expectations that I had, and a lot of the tropes that I was expecting, in a way that was really refreshing. And then in the end, I was like, oh, I bet it's going to be a dream. Oh, and like they're like, yeah, no, it was a dream. It was an omen. What are you going to do with that, Sarah? And I was like, whoa. So I really enjoyed this self-awareness, I guess, is maybe the closest thing I can think of to like describe that feeling. Was like you're reading, and as you said yesterday when you were kind of teasing the story for today, you mentioned that it was very strongly an allegory, which it is. I just didn't know it was going to be such a self-aware allegory.
Yeah. But that sounds like really exciting. Also, just to kind of track your own. I've seen this before, and this before, and this before. The way you talked about the horror movies at the beginning, and it is a really cool thing that we've just been continued to experience, seeing the foundation. It's like we're used to hanging out in the house, and right now we're playing around in the basement, and like these stories are the pillars on which so much that we consume are built.
One thing in particular that I hadn't, and maybe I have, and I'm just not remembering it, but the idea that like everyone in the town is in on something, and like you had no idea everyone was in on it. And I know it ends up being explained that this is a dream or an omen. But just like, oh, the good wife who taught him his catechism is secretly a witch, and like the deacon is secretly, a devil worshiper. It just reminds me of all those movies where like the whole town comes together and everybody takes back their hood, and it's like, oh, there was a cult all along. So it really like, I love those kinds of stories. Like it reminded me of like Get Out, where the
Mm.
character is a fish out of water, and it's like there's not just one bad guy. There's a whole flock of bad guys, and in fact, you might be the only good guy. So I really appreciated just seeing where that came from.
Yeah. In terms of, I want to add a nice little like close
Yeah,
read context. So
please do.
George Saunders, the short story writer, has a Substack called Story Club, which I don't follow religiously, but I know that he did do this story. So I went back and dug up his analysis of this.
Oh boy.
And there is a very cool, he kind of went nuts with analyzing the plot and trying to determine what actually happened. Because there is this question of a dream. Did he dream? Did he not dream? Did these things happen? And so I just want to like download his distillation of what may or may not happened.
Ooh,
Okay.
I'd love to hear this because I just came into this cold and like did not do any other looking around. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there. So as I'm reading it, this is Saunders speaking here. So as I'm reading it, young Goodman Brown succeeds in actually being two stories at once, depending on what we make of the question of whether the evil gathering was real or a dream. One of two things happened. Brown learned a deep and dark truth about the real and nasty nature of his community and his father, grandfather, and wife, and then is changed appropriately. Surrounded by demons, he withdraws into himself, protecting his fragile goodness. Or two, Brown, driven insane by the pressures of trying to be completely good in a system that demands perfection, that we might say fetishizes purity, hallucinates a widespread and non-existent evil in his community and is permanently embittered by it. The evil in this version is inside him. He projects it out into his community. So yeah, all that, those two interpretations, thank you, Saunders, for your very astute analysis, come from the question of like, was this a real gathering or was this a dream? So I would love to kind of see what you think. What is your answer to that question, Sarah?
Oh man. Well, first, I want to hone in, I don't know, whatever the right word is. You said fragile, and like I have that word written in all caps here, how fragile young Goodman Brown's state of mind is. And that's I think really one of the reasons this works is because we're introduced to this character who both could be true, either could be true, and you don't know because this is a very I don't want to say unreliable narrator, but a very unsteady one. And
I like that.
yeah, and so I just wanted to call out like fragile is such a good way of putting it, and it really the character then lends itself to this potential double reading. I'm also so curious. Okay, I'm also really curious, and I'm going to be a bit of a contrarian because that's how I get when faced with things, and ask what of this matters if it was real or a dream? So like how does what we take away change? So if it's real, if if he has truly been to like a black mass, if he has been to an evil Satan worshiping like gathering in the woods, and then he sort of essentially I'm going to get the exact wording of what he shouts out. Faith, faith, cried the husband, look up to heaven and resist the wicked one, is what he shouts. Whether this is real, whether it's in a dream, what makes him shout that?
Okay, great question. I mean,
Yeah.
I think essential to that question is that we know he's up to no good at the beginning. Or at the very least, he feels bad about whatever he's doing. We don't know what he's doing, but he sets out to pursue something that upsets his moral system. He feels guilt in advance about whatever it is he's about to do. You know what I
Can
mean?
I suggest for our
Yes.
conversation, and you can say like, no, I completely reject that. Can we table the answer of whether we think it's a dream or it really happened? Can we table that for the end and treat the story like both things are true?
Yeah.
Do you think that
I,
will that break anything?
I think that will expand and build.
Okay, good.
That's
Because
how
I
I
think I'd
feel.
like to do that. I think I'd
Well,
like to do that because you're
yeah.
right. It starts off with the character of young Goodman Brown. And
Yeah. I mean,
what
that's
did you
before the dream,
think?
right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that we could, we talked about this yesterday a little bit too. I mean, if anything, if anything, he's most sane in the beginning because this is pre-encounter with the devil, pre-night black mass. This is like he feels bad. He's leaving his wife, and he's like, "Oh man, how does she know that I'm up to no good? I swear to God." To himself, he says, "This is the only bad. It's just going to be this once, babe, or whatever." He's like, "I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm never going to do this again." But we
Yeah.
never find out what it is that he's setting out to do. So
No.
his
Yes.
later proving his own faith, is he telling that to his imagined or real wife? Or is he saying it to himself to somehow express guilt for what he's done or what he was going to do? This one's tough.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you can really guess at.
Yeah. Well, and since it's an allegory, it's also interesting. An allegory, for those of you who may not know, I don't want to talk down to you, but just in case you don't know, an allegory is a story that is illustrative of two opposing principles. So like light versus dark, or where the characters, the setting is symbolic of something. And so it's not meant to be read as a literal narrative necessarily. It can be, but you are also encouraged, I think, to keep your mind open to interpretation and what different things could stand for and how those apply to you in your life. Um, I completely forgot what I was going to say in going off on what an allegory is. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we don't necessarily, we're not told, and I have this in the margins, like what is this evil purpose? So he talks about like he's been married to Faith for 3 months. He leaves one night. She says, please just stay the night. He's like, nope, I have to do this overnight and into the next morning. Um, she says, no, please stay with me this night of all nights in the year. And I'm like, oh, is it like Halloween or some spirits rising? I didn't even know what I was getting into at first. And she says, I'm afraid because I've had some dreams, I've had some omens. I'm afraid that I will dream, that I will have, some omens. And so he reassures her, he leaves, and then he says Goodman Brown felt himself justified in making even more haste on his present evil purpose. So there's a lot even going on here, as you said, like he does openly, or at least the narrator openly says, like, hey, he's going to do something evil. What that evil thing is, I really like your interpretation. I just immediately was like, oh, he's going to go join a cult and make some kind of sacrifice, and then he'll be good for the rest of his life, you know? Um, which I think is a little maybe too literal for the situation. I like your interpretation of like, oh, maybe he's going to like cheat on his wife one last time, or yeah,
like and that's actually, I don't think that's that great because it seems as it's to me the story. We talk about how this is a foundational story. We've heard all these stories. The type of story that I thought this was in the first page and a half was a deal with the devil type story,
ooh,
where it's like he's
yes,
going to make a deal with the devil. Where my head was going is like, okay, he's going to go do something for the devil and get money for the crops, or to
right,
pay for the wedding, or he's doing something that he doesn't want to tell his wife about.
yeah.
That is for them, but it's a one-off thing. That's what I thought was going to happen at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, no, I think I agree with that. And it says when he is joined, so he like classic horror story goes off into the forest late at night and is met up, he meets a stranger, and the stranger says, "Hey, you're late." And young Goodman Brown says, "Faith kept me back a while," replied the young man, a tremor in his voice caused by the sudden appearance of his companion, though not wholly unexpected. So I think you're right. I think he did plan on at least meeting someone in the woods. Um, and maybe, yeah, the literal devil. I think that this works really I think this works really well literally and figuratively or allegorically as we go through. Um,
Do you think
yeah.
that young Goodman Brown had met this when he's walking in the woods, it's late, it's dark, he's having feels about whether he should be doing this, and he runs into this person. Do you think that he's seen this person before or not?
Hmm.
Because I feel like it could go either way. You're late, Goodman Brown, and then he says, "Faith kept me back a while,"
Mm-hmm.
and that seems very
Familiar.
familiar,
Yeah.
But then we get a long-ish paragraph describing the person. The story's kind of POV'd for young Goodman Brown, so this is kind of unfolding. I felt when I was reading it as if this is what young Goodman Brown is seeing, and that description is afresh, as if for the first time. He seemed
Yeah,
like he
it's
was 50 years old. He had this like
yeah.
weird stick thing, and that felt like the description of a character that is being introduced for the first time. And so then I was like, oh, well, maybe he hasn't met this person, in which case it's like, did he get a memo to meet the guy in the woods? You're going to meet a guy in the woods. And
Yeah.
and then who sent the memo?
Right. Well, to that, it's similar, if not a memo, similar to a memo. He says, "I've kept my covenant by meeting thee here. It is now my purpose to, essentially go back home." So he knew he was meeting someone, and it's interesting what does and doesn't surprise young Goodman Brown. Like he's startled by the stranger, but not surprised. So we know he was supposed to meet someone. We know he was keeping a promise to someone by meeting this stranger here, but why would he think it was evil? What did he expect would happen? I feel like we don't know a lot of that.
And just like a question I want to like plug in now, which we'll have to come back to, is just a larger question of when does not knowing work and when does not knowing not work?
Yeah.
Coming at it from the what can we gain as writers point of view here, it's like there's so much that's unexplained. There's so much that almost doesn't make sense, but yet for me at least, the story just works. And I think there is like an alchemy and a magic that we can never fully decipher. But that I would love to kind of come back to that if once we illuminate more of the story and just
Yeah.
be like, why do these shadows in the story? Why is it okay that they're dark?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, and I just feel this all from the jump. Yeah, it's like we just don't know. The story really throws us in, and we're trying to play catch up, which we've talked about also. We're really trying to play catch up.
Right.
Why is he here? What's the deal? What is the what's that old fashioned word you just used?
Prithee.
Covenant.
Oh, covenant. Yes.
I haven't kept covenant by meeting thee here. Yeah.
And a
Right.
covenant
So
is
yeah,
a
let's talk
promise.
about how
Yeah.
young Goodman Brown is so fickle and just like feckless. Is that the right
Yeah.
word here?
Yeah,
Like
maybe.
he's like, all right, babe. I'm just gonna call babe. Like, all right.
Babe.
That just starts with this like lame kiss. So just forgive me. Like, yeah, he's like, all right, Faith, I'm out of here. I'm going to do some stuff. Don't worry about me. And then he gets there to do this thing that he's presumably put his will towards. And then he's like, Jake, I'm not doing it. He sees
Yeah.
dude in the woods and he says, "It is my purpose now to return whence I came. I have scruples touching the matter thou wotst of." Right. And so it seemed like he had, to quote Lady Macbeth, what is that? Put
Out,
thy
out.
will to the sticking place. Put thy.
Oh, you probably know more Shakespeare than I do.
She's like talking him into killing Macbeth, and he's being wishy-washy about it. And it's something I want to say it's put your will to the sticking place. She just like get it together, and do the thing. And so he has done that when he leaves town. He's like, I'm going to go see the devil, and I have a covenant, and I have a plan, and this is some bad news, but I'm only going to do it once. And then he gets here, and he's like, oh, I'm going to go home.
And then I think what's interesting is what he does next is too far, he exclaimed, unconsciously resuming his walk. So he's like, I'm going to stop here. And then the devil is talking to him, and he accidentally, I guess, just sort of falls into step beside him without even really thinking about it, which I think is very interesting.
That could become really important because that could be on some like people are good or people are evil, whether we like it or not type thing. So I think
Yeah.
flag that. I'm underlining that for sure.
Yeah. And he's really, I think that's part of the fragility is like he doesn't seem entirely, I don't want to say like convicted because that's kind of a gross sounding word to me, but like he doesn't seem like he is. I've used the word agency before, but that's not what I'm talking about either. He is under his own agency. He is under his free will. Like he is coming here not because he's being like driven here or anything. He's coming here to honor a promise. He decided to come here. He continues walking with the devil like unthinkingly, but it's not forced or coerced. And I think he's just, yeah, he seems fragile. He seems a person of very little personal conviction. And he's terrified of what others think about him. He's terrified and ashamed that the devil says like, well, I walked these woods with your father and your grandfather, and he burned witches, and your father burned down an Indian village, and they're terrible people. And I think there is something here. He seems to be like clinging to himself. He seems to be like he's scared, and like I get that, but he is also, there's nothing anchoring him, I feel. So there's Faith, and he loves Faith, his wife Faith, babe at home. And so that's maybe one of the strongest things I think that he feels in the story, like the strongest piece of conviction he feels. And I'm kind of feeling my way through this, but I think more and more I'm convincing myself that not only is he extremely fragile, his mindset is fragile. He doesn't have, what's the word I'm looking for? Just conviction. He doesn't have like passionate,
Well, yeah, I think it's easy. I know what you're talking about. I think it's easiest maybe to talk about what he has than that finding that word of what he doesn't. What he has is a lot of self-doubt, a lot of anxiety. He is in a searching state. This very much feels like an identity crisis. Yeah, you know what I mean? Which I really love everything you just said, because that's just really like, as you're talking, that's really illuminating for me. And yeah, it's a real identity crisis because we all have these storylines about who we are based on our, so obviously a zillion things, but among them, of course, is who we see our parents as, who are grandparents. This particular person clearly sees themselves, their sense of identity is deeply rooted in family and ancestors.
Yeah.
And that is all being threatened.
Yeah.
And yeah, his lack of conviction or commitment or follow through, I feel you on the difficulty of finding that. It's so exciting. I mean, this character is just in true crisis. They don't know what they're doing, and they're constantly doubting this plan that they had. And I think what makes it such a morsel of a story is we don't ever really we don't know what the plan was.
Yeah.
The only thing we know about the plan was it was bad.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that works in its favor because that keeps us judgment free. Because I think like we might be like, oh, if he's going to steal something, we would say like, oh, well, either I hate thieves and he's a horrible person and I'm not even going to read the story, or maybe he was stealing to feed his family. Like we start to justify things, and just knowing that he is doing bad thing, maybe that's even better for the story.
Okay, this feels really, really, really valuable and breakthrough-esque for me because because it's like we as readers think it's bad because the story tells us it's bad. The main character who we as readers are latching onto tells us it's bad. So it's like, because we don't know, we don't get to disagree. We don't get to be like, yeah, that's bad, but it's not that bad. So all we have is like guilt, and we can imagine our own version of it.
Yeah.
Our own version of whatever that bad is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is there's so many like biblical allusions in here as well. And one of the things is like every time someone comes by on the path, whether he's with the stranger, the devil, or without, um, he hides. He's ashamed to be seen with this person. And it's very much like, Garden of Eden, Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. I can speak. God comes to check on them and they hide because they're ashamed of, the sinfulness in their hearts and the knowledge that they have. And I'm just the way that these things are pulled, like drawn out of him, like, oh, now we see his shame, we see his indecision, we see his, like you said, wishy-washiness. I'm just curious what that all adds up to. I don't know if I'm being like super clear at what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I think in context of American literature, right, the sort of like Judeo-Christian moral structure is embedded.
Yeah.
So even if clearly, many readers of this would have been practicing Christians, almost anyone reading it at this time probably would be familiar with that basic framework. And so I think that what Hawthorne's doing here is very much just leaning on things that we already feel. He's already kind of engaging with. These are like a specific kind of Protestant guilt or shame that like exists in the national consciousness. Obviously in some people more than others, but like, if you are born and raised in America, like at some level, that's probably working its way in. And so by, accessing that moral vocabulary. But I think what's cool is that it actually doesn't even matter, because I think that even if your sort of moral system was completely apart from that, it doesn't matter, because just the character is telling us that they feel bad or guilty. And you know what I mean? So it's just kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it's just really amazing. Like we just believe them. If the character says it, then we believe them. And if the character feels that, we feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that is more because it's intentionally written as an allegory, or maybe it's just part of the story itself. But it just really worked for me.
I in what ways I could come up with answers, but I want for you, in which ways is this an allegory? Like, how is this an allegory, and what is it saying?
Right. Okay. And this is part of why I'm so excited to like pick this apart, because allegorically it is the classic case of good versus evil. They're on a very metaphorical / literal, perhaps, road through a forest. The path itself is disappearing. Young Goodman Brown is stumbling along, sticking to the path, continuing on his way. He is, even by the, I didn't know if Goodman was his name, or if it was like, is that like a title? I wasn't sure. I know that Goody is maybe like good wife. So I didn't know if Goodman Brown, like, is his name Goodman? Or is that a title?
Well, I mean, I think if his wife is Faith and he is a good man.
Yeah.
I do think the story is like,
So that just sets us up to see that it's an allegory. So this is a good man. He's a young, good man, freshly married, going on an adventure for potential evil. And he meets the devil like on the road in the woods. And we have very, very obviously good and evil. But what's interesting here is, I think in a lot of other tales that I've read, in a lot of other stories, good and evil are usually a little bit more like confident in themselves. And we see a really confident devil. He's like, hey, bud, you're late. I've been waiting for you. Oh, are you nervous? Here, take my staff, or here, take this, stick that I pulled from the tree that withered as I pulled it from the tree and died, because I'm so clearly evil. And he just has no doubts. He's very confident. And he's like, hey, there's my girl, Goody Cloyce. I'm going to go talk with her for a while. And like, he's just so comfortable and warm and familiar. And It's so interesting because what we're told in words is virtuous. What we're told in words, like good man, is feeble, it's weak, it's fragile, it's doubtful, it's cold. Um, and what we see in the devil is like companionship and
Right.
warmth and friendship and confidence. And it's just like, so it's an allegory where we're told good guy here, bad guy here, but wow, is bad guy more appealing. And
Right. Well,
and yeah.
I think that this gets at one of those interpretations that George Saunders said earlier, is that like to be a good man in the moral system of Salem, New England, was to be insane, you know,
Mm.
to to achieve this idealized version of good meant living in fear of your actions, living in fear of your neighbors, that it was goodness that led to the murder of all these goodness that led to the murder of all these young women, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that, and so that like, to what extent is he a good man? Well, at the end of the day, he turns from the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Who is he? He's someone who lies to his wife, who has no self-confidence, and who, after the events of this tale, is miserable and hateful the rest of his life. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's the good man, you know?
Yeah. I really I agree with that interpretation. I think that that's really solid. I'm just kind of blown away with I'm going to try to put this into words. So, and thank you for being patient with me as I'm like kind of figuring out all of this stuff. Um he talks about he's actually going insane at one point. He is laughing out loud, he's maddened with despair, he's like screaming to himself and like he's acting like a true crazy person. But he's also continuing to walk down this path and the devil is not guiding him. The devil has not told him like, hey, you need to go down this path or I will kill your wife. He actually the devil actually says, oh, I like Faith, I don't want her to die, she's fine. I'd rather, 20 goody close cloises died than your beautiful Faith. And like Goodman Brown is like, but he's not doing it out of, he's not the action that he's taking. So he's walking toward this like black mass, this fire in the woods. And he doesn't see it until he gets there. He's not walking toward the fire explicitly, but he's walking down this path in the woods. And he's screaming that I'm going to stand firm against the devil, and he has like the voices of people that he used to respect, pious people. He hears the deacon and somebody else, the minister of the town. He doesn't see them, but he hears them. He hears a cloud of voices. He hears Faith's voice in this cloud, and he's following this cloud of voices. And Faith's pink ribbon falls from the dark cloud. And he's like, oh no, Faith is dead and gone forever. Now I have to resign myself to going to this
Right.
black mass. Like,
Right.
so there's what he's doing. And so, okay, I'm going to sum up, I think, what my brain is trying to say through my mouth very ineloquently. And that is, we're seeing a critique of piety, perhaps, because I think hopefully most people today would condemn the Salem witch trials. It was a horrible tragedy, and evil was perpetuated under the guise of morality, right? During the Salem witch trials. Historically, if you look at them, it was a lot of scapegoating. It was a lot of fear of intelligent women. It was just, there's a lot going on. But that was all malice and evil perpetrated under the guise of morality. I don't think young Goodman Brown is doing anything moral. He's just wandering around and he's like not deviating. The only thing he's like actively doing is stumbling toward this eventual like clearing with the 4 burning trees. Like he's not like, well, I guess I got to murder this baby. He's not like doing anything evil. And I think that's what bothers me is that,
Yeah.
like, if this is going to be an indictment against like the evil of the Salem witch trials, the oh, she's a witch. We're good Christian men. We have to burn this witch. She's obviously evil. Like they were using morality to like fulfill their political social agenda. I don't know where that is here. Or if, I mean, and maybe I think you mentioned earlier that like maybe Hawthorne is saying like, oh, just by being weak-willed and like going along with the crowd and not really watching where you're going, you can easily fall into this type of evil.
Hmm.
And maybe it says something that it does say at the very beginning. He's making haste on his present evil purpose. He knows he's doing something evil. Um, but we're told that and we're never shown it.
Okay. Here's a thought.
So a lot of thoughts
That
here. Okay.
yes, I love all this. So yes, he shows himself to be a amoral or unethical person in this story, and I mean that neutrally in his in the wishy-washes.
Yeah.
It's not that he's making good choices or bad choices. It's just that like he does not have a strong compass one way or the other. Like there's not like his hands are not on the steering wheel of the ship. It's just going every which way. And
but he's staying on the ship and like
he's staying on board. He's staying on board, but he's not steering it, or he's like just it's very like right. As soon as he sees the ribbon, he throws it in the towel. And he's like, I'm going for the devil. So
there wasn't even any blood on the ribbon, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
it could have been a stray ribbon.
You're that fragile, my guy. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So like that, maybe what the story is saying is that, but there's only one moment that he really does have conviction. And it's at the very beginning when he leaves his wife. It's not easy. She's young. She's beautiful. They just got married. He clearly doesn't like to be lying to her. That is the one moment in the story that he actually like does something. You know what I mean? So if the thing that motivated him in the beginning, which we never fully know, like whatever gave room or engendered that conviction at the beginning is something, maybe that's the piety. Like I don't know. What I'm trying to like figure out is there a switch that got flipped that disabled his ability to live a life of integrity, a moral life, and again, not like a good one, but just like one where you're thinking about those things, that you have a moral structure, that you have a moral compass of any kind. What was the switch that got flipped that completely incapacitated his ability for that? Because most of the story, he has no ability except for the very beginning. So
and at the very end, there's 2 points, because you're right. There's that point at the beginning, and then at the end, and maybe this is arguable. Maybe this is not a point of conviction, but he does shout out, the husband cast one look at his pale wife, and faith at him. What polluted wretches would the next glance show them to each other, shuddering alike, blah, blah, blah. Faith, faith, cried the husband. Look up to heaven and resist the wicked one. Like, I feel like he makes some kind of decision there. But I wonder if this is all slowly like coming together in my brain. And I'm wondering if he has come away with a misunderstanding of what morality is. When he says, turn away from the wicked, and he then turns away from any sense of warmth and community and fellowship with anybody else. And he chooses like this cold judgment of others but is Hawthorne saying like, oh, that's what morality at the time was? Like morality itself was flawed, morality itself, and it left people who wanted to be good following, back then it was moral to point at your neighbor and call her a witch and condemn her to death. Like, is this just even calling
that's
out?
really interesting, because I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's a reminder that presumably, given that ending, he was a relatively good guy beforehand.
Or at least he wasn't horrible. Like,
like emotionally regulated.
Yeah. Yeah, he goes in the woods. He goes a little insane. He comes upon what may or may not be a dream. And then he just like makes a decision to look up to heaven, resist the wicked one, and then just like immediately he becomes this like cold, horrible person. Like
Right.
the minister like greets him on his way into town, and young Goodman Brown's like, I know what you're capable of. You're capable of evil. I'm gonna reject your blessing. Screw you. And like I want to see there's like Goody Cloyce is even there's a little girl who brings her like a pint of milk, and he
Hmm.
like
Yes.
dives in
Yeah.
front of like he's diving in front of a bullet. He like dives in front of the girl and's like, don't let Goody Cloyce, get you. It's just very, and maybe I'm trying to read too many things into it too. We know I'm guilty of that given yesterday's story, but like there's there's this is so interestingly complicated.
Yeah. I like that. That's well put. Well, let's like go to the text
Yes.
a
Oh,
little
let's.
more closely. I don't even know where yet. Just like let's maybe we can just turn back to what's in front of us and see if we can find anything in particular. Here's a line that I underlined. Goodman's walking along and he says, "The road grew wilder and drearier and more faintly traced, and vanished
Hmm.
at length, leaving him in the heart of the dark wilderness, still rushing onward with the instinct that guides mortal men to evil." The
The
instinct
instinct. That's
that
good.
guides mortal men to evil. So, I this is one, if maybe possibly the moment in the story that it gets most explicitly making explicit claims about goodness, evil, etc.
Yeah.
What do we make of this? Like, how does this sentence impact this conversation? That in the logic of this story, there's an instinct that guides mortal man to evil.
Well, I think that's echoed later on in the story. I think you honing in on that sentence is really um perceptive because the moral of the story comes in, I think, a few phases. One
Oh, are
of
you
which,
looking where it says evil is the nature of mankind?
well,
Because
why, yes, I am.
it also says that, yeah.
Yeah, so later on, it hints that like the devil is like, hey, I don't even matter in this equation. The devil's like, I could do things that are not half as bad as what you can all do together, right? He's like, evil is the nature of mankind. Evil must be your only happiness. I'm going to go back actually a little bit. Oh, I really want to. There we go. Okay. By the sympathy of your human hearts for sin. So essentially, our hearts are drawn to evil, to sin. Ye shall scent out all the places, whether in church, bedchamber, street, field, or forest, where crime has been committed, and shall exult to behold the whole earth one stain of guilt, one mighty bloodstop. Far more than this, it shall be yours to penetrate in every bosom the deep mystery of sin, the fountain of all wicked arts, and et cetera, et cetera. So he's like, human evilness comes from within and you spread it to each other like a disease. And like in that sense, I kind of understand that young Goodman Brown would feel the need to like disconnect himself from his entire society.
Mm.
Right? Because it's like, I say no to evil. Evil is bred in the hearts of every single person. Therefore, I must say, I must reject all humanity. Right? I mean, I kind of get that. And then in doing so, you're rejecting all of the good things that come with humanity too.
Yeah.
But and so I think that echoes what you were saying, that like there's something in his heart that's drawing him down this path, even after the path itself disappears. And it's this sort of like calls to like. It's sort of like evil's calling to evil. And then
Loathful brotherhood.
yes, yes. There's so many good juicy phrases in this too, by the way. I found myself like jotting down a few of them. There's some really, really good stuff in here. But
Okay, well, let's
yeah.
run with that for a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
if this pull, the evil in him, the evil side, all that was wicked in his heart, if that's what drives him in the story, right? Like, we don't know if there's a specific deal with the devil, but he's 3 months into his marriage. He's a young man, and the wicked in his heart says, like, young man, go to the woods and see what you will find there.
Mm-hmm.
If we take that as the assumption of kind of what this story is about, I guess it's just that if you listen to that voice, it's not going to work out for you, but not in the way that you think. If you listen to the voice that's wicked in your heart, it's not that you're going to go and be in consort with the devil and do evil things. What's going to happen is that what's actually literally going to happen is that you'll come back a jerk.
Yeah, you'll judge people.
Metaphysically, what's happening, I don't know. It's like, if you
Right.
listen to the voice in your heart that is inclined to evil, and you want to like go play in the dark, like go be the Darth bad Jedi for a little while, Sith, see what's up on this side of the tracks. It's not that your heart's going to get eaten out per se, because he proves his faith. And so why does an assertion of faith lead to you to be miserable? And
Right.
does the story have an answer to that question? Because that is what happens. He declares his faith. He's like, no, I'm not going to succumb. And then he's miserable.
Right. So I have a question that comes off of that. Is this a misunderstanding by young Goodman Brown of what it means to renounce like wickedness and the devil and sin? Because where does it come from? I was actually curious. On page 139, when
I'm sorry,
he is
Sarah, say that again. Hold on. I want to make sure I'm with you here.
Oh yeah, okay, wait.
Just say that one more time.
Oh,
what's the misunderstanding?
Oh, is this like where the source of evil is? So I'm trying to think,
I
like,
see. Okay.
Goodman
Yeah,
Brown
yeah.
He's like on board with like, oh yeah, obviously we're all horribly evil, and like being together creates more evil. Therefore, I must isolate myself and be a jerk to everyone. But I'm wondering, like, where does he get that idea? Like, because then my question then is, he walks with the devil for a while, right? And then the devil like splits off. And then the 4 pines, maybe I just think of them as pines. I don't know if it says that or not. Page 139. Let's see. The fire on the rock shot redly forth and formed a glowing arch above its base, where now approached a figure. Did you interpret that figure as like the devil coming back?
I think I did. I think I thought of them as the same.
Okay, I did too. And I was just, it doesn't like really explicitly say, and it doesn't say like this figure was carrying a staff that looked like a black snake. And, it's not that explicit that this might be the same person. It just says the figure bore no slight similitude to some grave divine of the New England churches. And it's like, is this like a bishop of the time?
I think the reason why I thought it was him is because of the way Goody Close interacts with him. Because like, aren't they like talking about the night? Doesn't she identify him as like as the leader? Don't we get a glimpse of a little conversation between them?
Well, Goody Cloyce leads this figure. Let's see. Deacon Gookin is seizing his arms, led him to the blazing rock, led between Goody Cloyce. Let's see. It sounds like Faith is being led by Goody Cloyce toward this dark figure, to this like baptismal font of evil and darkness.
I meant at the beginning. I meant like
at the beginning. I am so sorry.
Yeah. When
yes,
the
they have a conversation.
Devil says they see Goody Cloyce on the road ahead, and young Goodman Brown's like, "Oh, don't let her see me."
Yeah, I'm gonna hide, and then
whatever.
She and the devil are like,
yeah, and doesn't she say
she
like,
stole my broom? Yeah,
doesn't she say, "I'll see you"? Like, doesn't she identify him?
Oh, you know what?
The leader, in some ways. I'm trying to find it. Your worship. Yes. He calls him your worship.
Yes. And then
so,
she
as
disappears.
I was saying, being all ready for the meeting.
You know what?
But
you're
now
right.
You're good worship. So I think it's relatively safe to say that
the
person at the end is also the man on the trail.
So then the stranger on the trail, this is the person, this quote unquote sable form, this dark figure, is the one who is like preaching that, like, yes, your human hearts are full of wickedness and sin. You know, you don't even need the devil. Like, is it a problem that, like, Goodman Brown is the problem partially that Goodman Brown just like takes the devil at his word in this and doesn't even say, like, hey, but okay, what if we're not all like infecting each other with evil? Like, he doesn't even seem to question that. And maybe that's like a larger commentary on, like, you go to church and you don't question what you hear, you know?
Right. Well, I think it's another example. I was going to say just another example, but I don't think that's right because I think it's many things. But I do think that one of the things it is another example of how he actually has no facility.
Yeah.
You know, he has no like moral rigor in terms of kind of, you know, it makes me think of like media. You know, watch the media critically and kind of discern POV and all that stuff that they used to teach. Like, how do you kind of like understand bias? He doesn't have any kind of moral capacity that it's exactly what you're saying. He doesn't even interrogate it.
Yeah. He just doesn't even question. So I'm seeing a few things come together here, and I'm feeling a little more comfortable
Okay.
in our understanding of this story. But how are you feeling right now? Is there anything, did you want to talk about that a little bit more? Did you want to like kind of poke at anything else? How are you feeling?
I'm just still a little bit riding this excitement of the showing, not telling of this character's lack of sort of moral framework. And just, I don't know, something that you said kind of just unlocked that for me. If you zoom out and you see what this person is doing, you're seeing them fail to engage with any kind of moral rigor again and again and again. Which, again, to be clear, is not the same as making bad decisions. It's just like they have no capacity to make decisions. And so I'm just kind of thrilling off that a little bit right now is like where I'm at. And that's just like such an interesting, my experience right now is just feeling how that is just such an interesting character, an interesting part of the human experience to like dig deep into in this story.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too. And I think that's something we don't see a lot of. Or at least maybe I haven't seen a lot of in what I've read. Maybe I just need to read more. But we don't really see ever, you know, characters being criticized or dressed down for cowardice. And maybe that's just because we don't see a whole bunch of cowards or people who lack, I don't know, a backbone. Something that he doesn't stand for anything. He's just kind of looking to be a people pleaser. Like, he's just scared of who sees him in whose company. And
okay, here's a question that I think could be fun.
Yeah.
And if anyone's watching this and has an answer to this, I'm curious what you think about this. Why is this in an anthology of horror stories?
Ooh. Oh. That's such a good question, because I'm wondering if I hadn't read this in the context of the Dark Descent, like, would I have even thought of this as horror? I would have thought of this as like, oh, it's like puritanical literature, or it's allegory, or, I mean, yeah, did you at any point feel a thrill of horror? And I'm going to be very rude and interrupt myself and you. And I do remember from the very beginning, the intro from David G. Hartwell about.
You want to read us the intro? I think that would be valuable.
I do, and
or at least whatever part you're thinking of.
Yeah. So he talks about Nathaniel Hawthorne was the greatest American writer drawn to the matter of the Puritans and their moral horrors. It has been pointed out that the Puritan sermon, with its hair-raising images of hell and damnation, was the characteristic mode of horror literature in the United States before the invention of the short story. Which I did have to read. I didn't read this in high school. I did read Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. I don't know
Mm,
if you read that by Jonathan Edwards, but it is scary.
yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, and it goes on to say Hawthorne's awareness of horror and its effects underpins one of the great allegories of good and evil. Uh, and I think that for me that was like the salient part of that introduction was just um the moral horror. We read Lucy Clifford's The New Mother, which I think is also a moral horror, arguably.
Yeah, well, yeah, yes, yes, right. It's like a morality tale that is actually horrifying. Right. I think that's enough. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, and again, if you're joining us, we're working our way through this short story collection. Earlier, several weeks ago in the series, we read a story called The New Mother called Lucy Clifford, which is an iconic morality tale from the late 1800s, where it's a story that you tell your children to get them to behave a certain way, but it's actually a horror story. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely, there is also that here.
Well, and it's similar too, like in sermons like Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. It's if you aren't moral, bad things are going to happen to you. It's like talking about sermons in that sense. Like I understand that. But again, it gets a lot more complicated in the terms of this story. Like I
I
feel
think
like
it's
it's not that
cool.
clear.
Yeah, well, from our conversation, I do feel like it's fair to identify it as a horror story, but maybe in ways that, there's imagery, like maybe its sort of surface way in which it's a horror story is sort of imagery, the devil, people, it's really like the scene of the fire and everyone, like that
Mm.
is kind of viscerally affecting.
That
But
reminded me of the Call
actually,
of Cthulhu with the fires.
yes, but actually, I think that maybe what's scary is this is actually an example of like existential horror based on today's
Ooh.
conversation. Like based on today's conversation, this feels that maybe the reason it's in here, or maybe the reason we can experience this as a horror story, is existential horror, which is like, guess what? On this life, um, you're going to be called. You're going to be called in the night, and you're going to go and you're going to
Mm.
think, you're going to do the thing that you were trained to do, which is stand
Mm.
up for good and not succumb to the dark side. And the night of your greatest test, when you succeed, you know what's going to happen? You're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. So that feels like existential horror to me. You know what I
I
mean? It's
like
like
that.
this person doesn't have the skills to think about the, so yeah, as we discussed, like doesn't have like a good like tools for making moral decisions.
Mm.
To the extent that he does make one, like you said, I think it's great. There's actually two. He leaves, and then the big one he makes is that he stands up for his faith. That doesn't get him anywhere.
Mm-mm. You know what this reminds me too of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
I've never read it.
Okay, so it's if you've read it or not, you might be familiar with, Scrooge is visited by the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. And the end of this reminded me a lot of Scrooge's visit from the ghost of Christmas future, where he sees, like, hey, if you keep living your life the way you are, you're going to end up miserable. And Scrooge makes a decision to engage in community and to like help the poor and like stand up for what's right. And it's a very powerful move. He buys a Christmas turkey for the Cratchits. He does all this this reminded me of that. If Scrooge had no conviction, if Scrooge hadn't, because Scrooge also says, take me back. I want to live the right way. I want to redo this. And the ghost takes him back and he's able to like mend his mistakes and like start anew. This, he yells, look up into heaven and resist the wicked one. And it's kind of set up like Scrooge's conviction moment. And then everything's terrible. And what
Yeah.
we see here at the end, he's just buried. He lives a really long time. and everyone is just miserable around him, and he's buried. And that was like what was envisaged initially. Something similar to that was envisaged for Scrooge before he mended his ways.
Mm.
And maybe I'm just reaching for something there, but I think I really like, did you call it the Dark Night of the Soul? Is that what you had said?
I didn't say that. That's a Save the Cat beat. So
My
not
bad.
by the way, but no, I mean that it's a hallmark of many great stories. There's a dark night of the soul. Yes,
You're put to the test. Yes, you're
put
put
to
to
the
the
test.
test.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. What I was saying was like this is the test that seemingly puts to the test all you've worked towards as a development of a person.
And he hasn't done, Goodman Brown hasn't done any of that.
And I think that's why this is just such like
I think so. I
takedown
think
of
so.
like Salem area Christianity. And it's like you're
Yeah.
equipped. Your faith is strong. And
But what are you using it for?
well, yeah, and it just I mean, it's really dark. It's really
I like
dark.
that. I like that. I like this. I'm very excited right now. Like talking about this story with you has been like, I feel like we've been just putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Like it's like the pieces are just going into place. And when Scrooge decides to become a better person, it's because he actually learned a lesson, and he actually, like, there was change in his heart. Goodman Brown, I don't think there's anything going on in there.
Well, like I said, I haven't read it, but from what you described, I mean, they just seem founded on two, like the underlying theses about traditional American Protestant Christianity. Dickens is set, which I guess we're not even in America yet, but still that vision of Christianity, like it is a force for good, and if like when engaged with like correctly, can right wronged people, can
Right.
like reform the wicked.
Right.
You know, that's like the message based on that. For what you described, the message of the story is that like, hey, look, if you turn to good, everything's going to be great. And the message of this story is if you turn to good, you will be miserable and treat everyone like shit the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right. And the good in each case is this like be a good Christian thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. And I love you calling it existential horror. Like that's so perfect. Because that's what I'm left with at the end. I have to read you this last sentence. I know I've done this with some other
Yes.
stories.
Yeah,
This is just so good. Okay. And when he, speaking of Goodman Brown, when he had lived long and was borne to his grave a hoary corpse, followed by Faith, an aged woman, and children and grandchildren, a goodly procession, besides neighbors not a few, they carved no hopeful verse upon his tombstone, for his dying hour was gloom.
Yeah.
Lest not this happen to you.
I mean, I guess if you want more reason why it's a horror story, right? It's like we're witnessing the psychological destruction
Mm-hmm.
of a person. You
Yeah.
know, that they have a sturdy and a diluted but sturdy sense of who they are in the world. And per this like short story idea of defining a moment, a before after moment, he has a diluted but sturdy sense of self.
Yeah.
And then his entire sense of self is obliterated. And the consequences of that are not just his own misery, but the misery of those around him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that he never comes back from it. It's like he makes a decision that night, he's pissy the next day, and he dies miserable many decades later. And it's like never once did he turn from that final decision he made this evening.
Mm.
Like that's what gets me.
Mm.
It's like, my guy, you did not have to be miserable, but you did.
To the conversation we had about yesterday's story, you know,
Yeah.
and talk about what we can learn from this as writers. This ending very much surprised me. That was my experience. I thought that like the fact that the result of this night in the woods real or imagined was just him being miserable the rest of the life, I never would have like pulled that out of a hat. Like,
No.
if anything, I would have thought like one specific thing, he would have come back and like killed Faith, or something like would have happened. But the fact that the result of this night was an enduring state surprised me.
Enduring
That's
misery.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, me too. Me too. And the expectation after he cries out this, Faith, look up to heaven and resist the wicked one. What I expected to happen, and I said this like right at the beginning of our discussion, was like, this is one of the things that surprised me so much, because when I see a character in a story do that and say, wait, I'm gonna be good, or wait, be next to me and, reject evil, what you expect is, oh, and then the sun came out and Faith stood at his side and angels came down from heaven and said, you have passed the test. That is very opposite of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That was extremely surprising to me that it ended the way it did. And maybe that's why it continues to be such an enduring story, because you don't expect it, but also in looking back, it doesn't seem at odds with the rest of the story.
Right.
Like it's very believable that young Goodman Brown ended his story like this. I have no question. Like, I'm not like, wait a minute, this is the author messing with, no, none of that. Is completely, it worked completely for me.
Yeah.
Like powerfully.
Yeah.
Despite my expectations. So.
Well, what are you going to take from this, Sarah? Is there anything here that you're going to see if you can work into your own writing?
I think that this does so many things. I kind of want to go back and reread it and take a look. So before this, I would never have considered writing an allegory, because for me, allegory equals obvious. Because we have generations of stories about good versus evil, etc. This one is the first allegory I've read that has like blown my mind, like, and completely surprised me with the ending. And so I want to go back through and just like read it as an allegory and understand a little bit more what I can take away like from this new understanding of the story form into my own work.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I like that. I think for me, I could see myself pulling a similar move at the beginning of a story that Hawthorne pulls at the beginning of this story, which is that we don't know his plan. He's like setting off in the night to do something wrong, and we don't know what he's doing. And I think that's maybe less, it feels so right, and kind of, I don't question it at all in this story, but I don't think that's really I don't think that's intuitive. I think a lot of times the story opens and it's like, what the plan is, and it's just all we know is how he feels about the plan.
Yeah.
And I want to start a story like that and see what happens.
Yeah, it's really powerful. It ends up being really powerful.
Yeah. Very cool.
Young Goodman Brown, you guys.
What? Young Goodman Brown. Well, gosh. Okay, you want to tease us up for next week, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. So those of you who are just joining us, you are watching Horror Story Club, and we are working our way through the Dark Descent, edited by David G. Hartwell. We're just literally reading every single story in order. And so our next story in line is Mr. Justice Harbottle by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Again, another author I've never heard of, and I'm very excited to read. Are you excited? Do you know who this is?
Yeah, I do. He wrote Carmilla.
Oh, the vampire story.
Yeah.
I do know that.
Yes. I'm yeah. And so
I didn't know this was that person. Okay, cool.
I think so. And I have never read anything else by them, so I am very excited for this story.
Well, I'm even more excited now.
Yeah.
Oh.
This story is called Mr. Justice Harbottle. I'll read the first sentence here. Prologue.
Yes.
On this case, Dr. Hesselius has inscribed nothing more than the words Harmon's report, and a simple reference to his own extraordinary essay on the interior sense and conditions of the opening thereof. Okay, giving very esoteric vibes. We'll see.
I like it. Present tense.
Present tense. Ooh, it's a long one, y'all. This has got to be public domain, so I'll probably read this out loud on the channel.
That would be amazing. I definitely think you should do that. That is it's so delightful. So yeah. So
cool.
Those of you, if you saw this, enjoyed it, would like to add your own thoughts, please do so in the comments below. We would love to engage with you about this story and many of the others that we've done. Let's see. There is a link to our Discord also in the metadata or the description below this video. So come and join us. We're talking about writing and stories and looking at stories as writers. What else am I forgetting? Oh, we do sci-fi story club
tomorrow,
every Wednesday.
I think
Yes.
Tomorrow we're gonna write. So same time, Sarah. Does this time work for you tomorrow?
It does. Okay. It does.
We the links have been not created yet, but tomorrow same time we'll do a live writing. Sarah and I are tracking down cool spooky season submission opportunities. So we'll share a contest or a submission a publication, and we'll write together tomorrow. So come back, and we'll see you tomorrow. See you for that.
We'll be here, and hopefully we'll see you there.
All right.
All right, friends.
Bye
for now.